In the early 1960s, after bringing to the big screen such hits as Vertigo, North by Northwest, and of course, Psycho, the master of suspense Alfred Hitchcock was heading back to the small screen with the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. Previously terrorizing audiences with Alfred Hitchcock Presents, consisting of half-hour short stories, the Hitchcock Hour was going to ratchet up suspense, the mystery, and most importantly, the horror. Of course, while not every episode lived up to the promise, one did, and would go on to become an instant classic for many who watched the show, as well as those who would stumble upon it years later. 1965's An Unlocked Window. Welcome to the Vault of Horror.
And this is the third nurse murder committed in this area in the past 2 weeks. The search for Nurse Frida Little, who disappeared last Thursday evening, was ended early today with the discovery of her body here in Northside Park at 7 o'clock this morning by a park gardener. The victim had been dead for several days.
In a spooky story, atmosphere is king. Give me some rain. Add in a bit of lightning. You'll never go wrong with an eerie house. Now, let's make that a mansion. You need a killer.
Hello there, I'm the killer.
With a twist. And of course, an unlocked window. An Unlocked Window centers around a madman stalking and killing live-in nurses in a series of grisly murders. From the outset, we understand exactly what we're up against. Following a nurse as she walks home, at night, on her own, of course. Not something I would do, especially knowing that this guy could be out there.
I'm absolutely fine.
She can feel the presence of something behind her, but she sees nothing until she hears the sound of maniacal laughter.
Frida,
Who's there?
you're such a pretty nurse, Frida.
It's a solid intro you would expect to see in a horror movie, not a television show typically reserved for a simpler approach to scares. You get a lot of that in this story, though, and that's what's really appealing about this episode. It plays out like more of a Hitchcock movie, setting up the anticipation of what's going to happen next. The atmosphere plays a huge role in this as well. It's a dark night, and the storm is coming, when we're introduced to Stella and Betty, the current live-in nurses working at the Baker estate, taking care of the estate owner, Glendon Baker.
Why is it that when you're taking care of me, I feel so good, and when the new nurse is hovering over me, I feel really rotten?
What's wrong with Glendon? Who knows? The story doesn't waste any time with that nonsense. Oh, and on a side note, as if it weren't obvious enough, the exteriors used for the mansion are none other than the Psycho house itself, as a good amount of the Hitchcock Hour was shot on the Universal lot. With the storm quickly approaching and a madman on the loose, Stella is tasked with checking the doors and windows throughout the house. After an unfortunate encounter with a pesky rat in the basement sends Stella running, we see that one window was left open. Could he already be in the house? Again, it's the atmosphere that's the real star of this, giving the episode all the perfect elements that you would expect in the classic dark and stormy killer on the loose storyline. The sounds of rain, thunder, and the occasional menacing laugh are perfectly woven in to the shadowy visuals throughout. Characters are always hearing or seeing something that may or may not be there. Shortly after Sam the handyman is sent out to retrieve more oxygen for the patient, the electricity goes out, leaving the nurses and Maud, the estate caretaker, in total darkness.
What happened? He's here!
With only candles to see, and most of the house now in shadow. The show does a fantastic job of creating that dread anyone would feel in this situation.
Leave us alone. I hung up on him.
And of course knowing that a killer is out there, somewhere, maybe even in the house with them.
I heard a voice. He is in the house.
When it becomes a reality that something is happening at the house, the nurses are on high alert.
Have you checked everything?
Yes, I think so.
Every door, every window?
Yes. Yes.
When the phone rings and Betty answers it, they are made aware that their worst fears have come true. He's coming for them, and there's nothing they can do about it.
He knows we're alone, and he intends to pay us a visit before the night is over.
Stella rushes down to the window, but it's too late. She sees a man right outside, trying to get in. She flees upstairs, told to check on the patient. Knowing the killer is in the house, she heads back down, where she sees that the man who entered the house was the handyman Sam. It's then that the twist is revealed.
Yes. You'd forgotten about Sam, Stella. But I didn't.
Dressed as Nurse Betty, who Stella had only just met earlier, the killer attacks. As she realizes that she's been in the house with him all along, there's nothing she can do.
You're the man. The police.
There are no police coming, Stella.
We're told that the killer is later caught and brought to justice, but it's too late for Stella. The twist in an unlocked window may not pack as much of a punch today as it would have back then after seeing movies like Dressed to Kill, Cape Fear, and of course, Psycho. But if it does catch you off guard, it's a pretty good moment and done quite well, especially when he reveals himself talking to her with his actual voice.
You're such a pretty nurse.
Directed by Joseph Newman, An Unlocked Window is not Rear Window or Dial M for Murder, but as an hour-long episode of a horror-themed television show. Especially at that time in 1965, it's not something you would have expected. It stands out as one of the best episodes of the series, and truly eerie and captivating story. Newman did a great job of creating atmosphere, sound, and anticipation, with a memorable twist and a devious killer. The show would run for 3 seasons, and thankfully, this one made the list. It's a standout episode and a poster child for what the Alfred Hitchcock Hour was, and one of the few episodes that felt like it could have been directed by the man himself.
The window. That's what I was trying to remember. There was one window down in the cellar.